Hello, YouTube audience of Tales on Tap. How are you? I hope you've been well. I'm Chris from Tales on Tap, current DM of Aerilon, Sins of the PeaceKeeper, and I'm here to give you a little bit of a recap on what's been going on, also fill you in on some developments here at Tales on Tap, and also because, regrettably, some of those updates have led to a lost recording, a lost episode in the campaign, which unfortunately is no longer able to be uploaded. I'm here to just fill you in on what happened so that we can kick back off with episode 14 after this and you can continue watching the campaign. So first, it's been a while since we uploaded our last episode of Aerilon, Sins of the Peacekeeper, so you could be forgiven for having slipped on some of the details so far. So here's just a very quick rundown. Our adventurers in this campaign are all members of various law enforcement and national security agencies within the city-state of Valvaris. Having been relieved of their former duties due to various misgivings and insubordinations, they were sent to a new division, a clandestine division of former agents of various agencies now turned to a common purpose. Led by the enigmatic Regent, this seemingly downtrodden with lack of care for the rules type of person, as well as a cast of other interesting characters such as Fortress, the operations director, and Bandolier, the quartermaster, and Quill, their intelligence officer. They were set to defend Valvaris from threats that other agencies may not be suited to within the confines of the bureaucratic law of the vast city-state of Valvaris. So, that's what they did. Their first mission, they went off to try and intercept a group of robbers who had robbed an artifact, tracking them down to a bakery in a downtrodden part of the city known as Cobblebank. They performed the raid and were successful in doing so. Their next and current case was to find the whereabouts of an individual known as Waldron Barbazan. Barbazan, an apparent associate of this organization that they now find themselves in. After some initial investigation, they headed over to Barbazan Manor, and after snooping around, getting a few clues, they found that there was some kind of vault beneath the manor, accessible by the White Horse statue in the gardens. They headed down, and this was the last episode. They found the vault inside after fighting off some weird little automaton things, and also a strange puppet or robot android-like creature who referred to himself as Good Lad, which they later determined may be a Nimblewright, and recovered various pieces of research that Waldron Barbazan had been working on, but they did not find him himself. He apparently had gone somewhere else and was being pursued by some other clandestine society operating within Valvaris. And at last we left off, having gathered some research, Arturius was taking a look at a large chest in the center of the room, having taken out a few magical items from within, but at the bottom he found a door knocker and decided to knock the door knocker. That sent him through a portal, hurtling through time and space, and he found himself landing on a bed in a familiar bedroom, that of Waldron Barbazan in the manor above. Now, we'll get into that recap later, but just to explain why this episode is now missing, we have since parted ways with the two Dans who have gone on to Dice by the Sword. They're still streaming over on Twitch and you can catch them there. And we have continued this campaign with Jax, Marcus, and Lumiel heading up the team. In that transition, as we transitioned from Dan handling the streams on his PC to me handling the streams on my PC, I didn't record an episode properly. That stream is now gone, so unfortunately the recording is not recoverable. So I'm just going to have to recap it for you. Thankfully, it was not a particularly dramatic episode, especially considering the ones that we just had, but there were a few revelations, and it was kind of a debrief, kind of a get together all the information we have and plan for our next move type episode. I find those episodes really fun. I'm sure some of you do out there as well, so I'll just give you the run of what happened, and then we can get back into the action on the next upload of episode 14, which we do have, I think. So, last we left off as Arturius was dragged through the portal at the bottom of Waldron Barbazan's vault chest, he found himself landing on a bed. Taking in his new surroundings, he realised he was in fact in Waldron Barbazan's own bedroom. Lumi followed through shortly after, and as they hid, they heard hushed conversations outside and the crunching leaves of approaching footsteps by the window. As the individual passed, they were able to note his clothing and realised he was probably a member of either the Crown Service or the Ministry of Seals. The individual passed without spotting them inside, and shortly after, the rest followed through the portal, landing on the bed in a large pile. Arturius explained their situation, and they waited for an opening where it would be safe to make their way out the window and over the wall. As they did, footsteps approached the door of the room, and Artemis, being the last one out the window, turned to see the door open and a familiar face peer through. Brasseye, his old friend, entered the room, looked to him with a surprised look, and said that they should probably leave as quickly as possible, and that they would catch up later. Artemis trusted his old friend knew best, so headed out the window to follow the rest of the gang. And as they made their way over the wall back onto the street, Artemis provided a kind of flying squirrel display with his magic carpet to distract the guard outside, a purple-haired member of the Ministry of Seals that goes by the codename Starcurtain. The party agreed to split up and reconvene back at the last chance as soon as possible. Marcus and Jax took the infernal cycle and made their way out of Highcrest, but as they were leaving, they were intercepted by a few members of the Goldcoats. The captain of the Goldcoats had requested Jax's presence. Confused by the request, Jax asked who the captain of the Goldcoats was and why they wanted to see him. To which the Goldcoats informed Jax that the captain of the Goldcoats was Captain Drake, a familiar name to Jax, an old companion among the war divers. Jax agreed, and Marcus headed back to East Arches on the Silver Canal. Arriving at the Goldcoats' headquarters, a large inn by the name the Golden Garrison, Jax was led through and then up to the top floor into a large office to meet with Captain Drake. Expecting a reunion with his former war diver compatriot, he was instead introduced to Captain Trevor Drake, Cassian's brother, and a former soldier of the Valmarch under Jax's mother's command. Trevor is also looking for the missing Cassian, and has not been seen for several months following his return from duty in Lumina. They agree to let each other know if they hear of anything, but Trevor Drake seems to have no more business with Jax and allows him to leave. To which Jax mounts the infernal cycle and heads back to East Arches to rendezvous with the rest of the crew. First to return to the last chance is Lumiel, assisted by her rocket-powered jetpack, and outside she sees Lizaleth, wearing a tuxedo with ripped-off sleeves, having returned from her reconnaissance mission at the Sky Siren. She tells Lumiel that through some charming probing of the maitre d', a stunningly beautiful elf by the name Orlea, she found that Barbazan was booked at a table the night before, seated with a number of other individuals. Enoch Gross, Admiral of the Valgir, Troskatan, Commissioner of the Argent Star's Marble Garden Precinct, and Edwina Saluz, Head Minister of National Security at the Pillars of Governance, and former Deputy Director of the Crown Service. Auspicious bedfellows. Inviting Lumiel inside for a drink, Lizaleth orders around and addresses the Tiefling Minotaur barman as Louis. Then soon the rest will arrive and they head up to the briefing room. Now, what follows is a discussion that is wide-ranging, covering a lot of topics, so I'm just going to break down the main things that were discussed and whatever conclusions were drawn. So first, evidence. This includes Barbazan's diary and schedule, which included the meeting with Enoch Gross at the Sky Siren the night before, as well as some other engagements. His research notes on ancient rituals written in a lost primordial language. His sketches and diagrams of illithid technologies and demon princes covered in rambling scrawled notations. And the letter addressed to R. Jamal. They also discussed the nimble rite known as Good Lad. Those who had heard of these creatures before knew that they can be their own conscious or semi-conscious entities. They can be magical puppets controlled directly by an individual, or they can be surrogate bodies for the minds and perhaps souls of other people. And going through Barbazan's notes, they began to discuss the historical relevance to the threat that Valvaris was now facing. The Umai and the Daima, collectively known as the Udun, the artifacts required to halt the threat, and what experience historically this side of the Mortal Coil has had with the Far Realm in the past. One such incursion had been halted before, by Artemis, or his former self. But even he wasn't the first. They discuss that psionic abilities are intrinsically linked with the Far Realm, and the first time Regent had experienced it was 80 years ago, when his own wife Sabrina became victim to such visions from beyond. Picking up on the slightly awkward demeanour between Fortress and Regent when this was mentioned, the party inquired as to whether Fortress looks like Sabrina. The Regent had previously expressed that Fortress has her face. Indeed, Fortress does look similar to Sabrina. Perhaps a cruel joke by the Mother of Demons, or perhaps to remind him of what's at stake. Inquiring further what the Pale Knight has to do with everything that's going on, Regent told the party he sought out a djinn or a genie when all other alternatives had failed to protect her from the maddening visions. But the wish the djinn granted to keep Sabrina safe and far away from where the Far Realm can reach her sent her to the abyss, into the clutches of Pale Knight, the Mother of Demons. And so the Regent travelled to the abyss, through the hells and its many layers, alone, to retrieve the love that had been cheated from him. He failed. He tells the group that he will not return to the abyss again till it's time. The conversation returns to the ritual required to stop the Far Realm's invasion. One artifact, the Duna Diadem, still in the Regent's possession, and Barbazan seemingly on a lead to the second. But artifacts would not be enough. Minds of strong psionic capability were needed for the ritual as well. Finally, Lumiel identifies some of the magical items retrieved from Barbazan's vault. The orbs she retrieved from the mechanoids were essentially batteries that could harness the magical weave to power magical devices, but could be used for more volatile applications. The magnifying glass was in fact a lens of intuition, which could be used to better detect illusions or invisibility, as well as allow the user to cast the Comprehend Languages spell. Nice. Regent then asked to borrow the lens, and used it to scan across the back of the wax-sealed letter. Taking a moment to read the hidden note, he pocketed the letter and hands back the lens. They all headed off home for the day, agreeing to meet the following day at the Toadstool. But Gil lingers for a while to speak with Fortress. Gil confides in Fortress that he heard his own voice in his head, encouraging him during the battle at the manor. Fortress gives a subtle smile and tells him that there's no cause for concern. They relate to one another in this moment, both fractured and incomplete versions of another, and what that means for their future. Fortress takes on a more nurturing tone, maybe letting Sabrina slip through a little bit, and tells him, maybe one day when we are reunited with our other halves, we will know. The crew make their way from the Last Chance to their own personal homes, and we catch up with Jax as he heads up to his apartment, and standing outside is a friend of his, Dio. Dio, a flamboyant peacock of a man and concierge to the high society and nobles of Valvaris in Grand Market. Bottle of wine in hand, he has come to spill the tea on all the goings-on around Grand Market for their monthly nightcap and gossip. But he starts by telling Jax that another visitor had recently come to Jax's door, his mother. Terrified at the prospect of Dio having met his mother, Jax invites Dio inside. The two imbibe and wag their chins late into the night, and that is where we left that episode. So, I hope that brings you up to speed. We can now recommence our regular programming and start bringing you our full live-streamed episodes back here on YouTube. Again, you can watch these episodes live on our Twitch channel. Just head over to twitch.tv/talesontap. Things have progressed since the last episode we uploaded here, but you'll have those episodes soon to catch yourself up and start joining us again on the live show. It's currently Easter when I'm recording this, so I apologize if I have chocolate around my mouth during this. And be sure to follow us on social medias, all links down in the dungeon, to get further updates on our next live streams, YouTube stuff, and anything else we end up doing. Thank you for joining us. I hope this recap was helpful, and please join us live on Tuesday nights, 6 PM at twitch.tv/talesontap, or sometimes other days, depending on what's going on in our lives. Again, follow social media to know. And hey, enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for sticking around. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it was helpful. We'll see you there.